This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram, we're going to talk about some new hardware, right?
Yes. So, the latest thing in laptops is Intel's new uh, Lunar Lake, otherwise is known as Core Ultra 200V series processors. The laptops are the chips were announced a couple weeks ago. The laptops with them are coming out soon. We have not officially benchmarked any of them, although there are some leaked benchmarks out there. But Lunar Lake is a very interesting change to the processor market, and it has some pros and it has one really big con, which would stop me from buying one. So let's talk for a second and take a look at uh, a slide here from Intel, and I'm going to show. I'm going to show uh, that shows the different Lunar Lake chips that are coming out. So you'll notice here these are all the ones based on the Lunar Lake architecture. There's 9 chips. Now, one thing that you'll notice here is, sorry, this is really big. The memory field, the memory column here. Now you'll notice that for each chip, there's two SKUs, except for the Ultra 9. There's only one SKU. There's two SKUs, and one is 16 gigabytes and one is 32 gigabytes. Wait a second. Why do we have 16 and 30? Why do we have memory on the processor chart? Well, these are the first major PC CPUs that have the RAM built onto the CPU package. That means that laptop makers can only sell you a laptop with Lunar Lake laptop with 16 or 32 gigabytes of RAM. They must buy the appropriate chip. So here, like, if you want 32 gigabytes of RAM on your Core Ultra 7, you better get the 258V, not the 256V, because the difference between those two SKUs is the amount of RAM that is on the chip. But um, if you are a power user like me and you want to buy a laptop with 64 gigabytes of RAM, you can't get a Lunar Lake laptop with that. They don't make it. Um, they only sell in 16 and 32. No 8 gigabyte. I mean, although I don't feel too bad for folks not buying 8 gigabyte because, this is a new processor. If you're buying a new, somewhat, high end laptop, you're not going to want 8 gigs of RAM anyway. But um, you cannot get more than 32 gigs. But here's what you do get. So each one of them has the core counts are also lower than the last generation Meteor Lake. They have four performance cores and four efficiency cores. This is different than, say, like last generation's Core Ultra 7155H, a common chip that had 16 cores, six of which were performance, and then there was like eight efficiency and two super low power cores here. Um, there's just eight cores and eight threads. Um, so on multi-threaded workloads, some of the leaked benchmarks point to, and I believe this, somewhat worse performance. But here's what you are supposed to be getting with Meteor Lake. You are supposed to be getting, here actually I'll go to another slide from Intel here. You are supposed to be getting significantly more performance out of the NPU, uh, between 40 and 48 tops. Tops is how we measure NPU performance. That's trillions of operations per second. And the previous generation, Meteor Lake, I think, did maybe 10 or 12 tops. And here we're getting in the 40s, which is what Microsoft requires to use their Copilot Plus software. Although we've talked about that, and it's not that impressive. But nevertheless, for local AI workloads, you want to be 40 plus tops, and that's just the NPU. The GPU itself is supposed to be really good enough to actually do a little gaming, and it itself can do up to like 67 tops. So lots of AI performance here. Um, Similarly, we're expecting much better power consumption. So the claim is, I'm looking at here, uh, where's the slide for the battery life? The battery life claim that they made, obviously we would have to back this up, is that you can see that first of all they're saying they're getting more performance per watt on the GPU, and they can actually play games like Cyberpunk 2077 on it, uh, and that they're using significantly less power during high workloads. But I think what's also really interesting, they have on here somewhere, is that the claim that they're actually getting like something like 20 hours more battery life. No, I'm sorry, like 20 hours of battery life out of this versus like 18 for the Snapdragon. They're claiming to actually beat Qualcomm's chips, which are supposed to be the new kind of standard for power efficiency, by trying to find the exact slide where they had this. They're trying to claim they're claiming that they are significantly faster and also significantly better battery life. Now, whether that is true or not, whether that's under what circumstances that's true, remains to be seen. Still looking through their thing number slide where they had the uh, the battery performance claim, but it's very very um, um, anyway. They claim to get something like 20 hours of battery life on a test versus 18 for Qualcomm's chip, which is a lot. So, um, that remains to be seen, but this certainly sounds like a nice improvement. But, I personally am not very excited about buying one of these and I'm in the market, right? Like my laptop is getting old, 6 years old now. Uh, it's getting to be time. Uh, Lenovo, I like my Lenovo laptops. Lenovo recently announced a new ThinkPad X1 Carbon coming out called the ThinkPad X1 Carbon 13th Gen Aura Edition. It's going to actually be the lightest ThinkPad X1 Carbon yet. It's going to use Lunar Lake. It's going to be go from being the previous one was 2.42 pounds. This is going to be 2.16 pounds. So significant, like a significant amount of and claims to have long battery life, but you can't get it with more than 32 gigs of RAM. And while that's okay for a lot of people, I personally do not want to have my next laptop have 32 gigs of RAM. I want 64. Uh, and now, for a lot of people, 32 will be a decent amount. Uh, but, uh, once you start, first of all, if you hold on to your laptop for 3, 4, 5 years, 32 gig will seem pretty small in a couple of years. Whereas now it's probably the least that you should get. Um, and on top of that, one thing I like to do on my computer that not everybody does is I like to run a virtual machine. So if there's a new version of Windows or some wacky version of Linux that I want to test out, I can run it in a VM, and I want to give the VM at least 16 gigs of RAM. So if you have 32 gigs and you give 16 to a VM, well, then you're working with only 16, which by today's standards is not enough. Like 16 is, I mean, if you're like me, you have like 80 tabs open, and then then maybe you're editing an image, maybe you're editing some code, maybe you're watching a video, that gets used up really fast. So I don't know about you, but I want my 64 gigs of RAM. On the desktop, obviously not a problem to get that much RAM, but on a laptop, not a lot, but still, I want that option. I want to have it. What do you think, Scott? How much RAM would you want on your laptop?
So there's two things. One is I want a lot of RAM, right? Because the type of stuff we do. But I also want the ability to upgrade it if necessary, right? Like,
Now,
and there's another company that famously produces computers that you can't do anything about. I can't think of their name.
I mean,
uh,
to be fair, right? To be fair to the industry, right? Intel is not creating a new problem in terms of upgrading aftermarket
mhm,
because a lot of the best laptops come with soldered RAM.
mhm,
So,
yeah,
so yeah, with this, there's no possibility of having user upgradable RAM with Lunar Lake because it's built onto the chip. So there's no way like that a manufacturer could give you a DIMM slot
right,
to upgrade. But let's be fair, like some of the best thin and light laptops on the market have it soldered. X1
right.
Carbon soldered RAM. Dell XPS 13 soldered RAM. So
Probably the
unless you're
Surface one.
buying yeah, there are a lot of things are soldered RAM. So unfortunately, the option to upgrade after you buy is not great. I
Yeah,
mean, Lenovo recently came out with a new version of the ThinkPad T14, which is bigger and heavier than a lot of their other laptops. And that one of the things that they boast about there is that it is iFixit approved
okay,
and it has replaceable RAM. So that's an option. Not obviously they can't come out with that with Lunar Lake. Um,
right.
they haven't announced a Lunar Lake version of that laptop yet, so I don't know if they will. But still, there that thing is like 3.5 pounds versus like 2.5 pounds for
Right.
a laptop that I really want, and it's
Right.
like a lot thicker. So not
We
you
just
know they
we just had we just had somebody come into Forge a couple weeks ago. She's a student at USF. She bought a gaming laptop and she wants to be able to do video editing on it. And she's like, Premiere just freezes up on me. I'm like, I bet you got a low amount of RAM in there. What? So I went and checked. Yep. Even without Premiere running, with no videos loaded, she was basically maxed out. Um, and so, what did I do? Flipped it over, um, found out what it was, checked the configurator, and saw that I could update it. But the main chip was locked in place, but I could add another one. I couldn't
Yeah, well,
replace the one that was in
gaming
it.
laptops let you do that. A lot of
Yeah,
gaming laptops are upgradable,
yeah,
but if you want something the nice, if you're not buying gaming laptop, if you want one of the nicer kind of portable laptops around,
yeah,
like the Surface laptops, like the X1 Carbon, or I think the HP Dragonfly or the Spectre or any of the really nice ones. I think
yeah,
that all of those are soldered RAM. The SSD can usually be upgraded, but not the RAM.
yeah,
So I can't totally blame Intel for that. I mean, they're taking the option away from the manufacturer to even consider that, but most manufacturers unfortunately took the option away from you a long time ago. Now, so what that suggests is like what I'd like to do when I buy my next laptop is configure it with 64 gig, and they don't sell pre-configured models. Like you have to pay it, you have to like have it special custom configured on the website to get 64 gig, and they really do charge you through the nose. It's not fair. Like it's like $400 or $500 more to go from 32 to 64. It's really unfair because it's probably the cost of if you had a desktop, the cost of or a laptop that was upgradable, the difference would be like $50 to $100. But you know, unfortunately, you know that's uh, that's kind of the world we're living in. Like I really like the X1 Carbon. That's one I would strongly consider getting. To configure that up, you have to get the top end CPU, which adds like another $200 or $300 to the price, even though it's not appreciably faster than the CPU below it. But only with that top CPU can you get 64 gig. So you're buying a CPU that you don't necessarily need to get more RAM and paying through the nose for it. So you definitely like it. Definitely is a narrow niche of people who want the 64 gig on their thin and light laptop, but I really would like that. Um, Now, I had a lot of people when I wrote an article about this, an op-ed about this, say you should just get a bigger laptop. Like, just get a different laptop if you want 64 gigs. But the get a different laptop means get a bigger, thicker, heavier laptop, right? And so that's not great. I'm kind of in a weird, unique position where my laptop that I buy for myself is like my machine that I use at the office when I go into work, which is now 4 days a week. So I want to have the RAM when I'm there, but I also want it to be pretty light because I have to carry it back and forth. When I'm at home, like I am right now, I have a desktop which has way more processing power than any laptop that I could buy. So my laptop doesn't have to be like workstation class performance, but I still want it to be fairly light, but I want it to have RAM. So that's kind of the trade off. And maybe I do have to get a heavier one. I don't know. It's annoying because Intel could have solved for this, but if they could have come out with a 64 gig model, but I don't know. Maybe they can't get the memory for it. Maybe they didn't think there was enough of a market for it. I did get a comment from Intel before I wrote my article. And they said um, they're happy with their mix of SKUs. Um, and I got a comment from someone at Dell who said, hey, don't worry, we think we've got a pretty good mix of SKUs. But if you want a Snapdragon laptop like the new Copilot Plus PCs, those can be had with 64 gigs of RAM. You can configure a Dell XPS 13 with the Snapdragon processor with 64 gig.
Okay.
So I think, I think it's kind of lame that they're cutting you off at 32.
Yeah, agreed. Because like if I was buying a laptop today, right? If I was replacing my machine with a brand new one, um, I would 100% be looking for something with 64 gigs.
Now, would you
It's
get
just
a
the
thin and light
reality.
laptop, or would you get a thicker one to get, the higher performance and more RAM?
Yeah, see, for me right now in particular, I would absolutely because of limitations, I would probably end up with an Alienware or an Asus, the ROG, something in that category, simply because, well, one, can't trust the RAM, right?
Right.
And two, performance uh, performance options.
Yeah. Yep. Well, anyway, it's my if you feel like, hey, you're not going to run VMs, you're not worried about, what RAM needs are going to be like in a few years from now, the 32 gigabyte Lunar Lake might be okay for you. For me, I want my 64 gig. I mean, we also have alternatives out there. Not only are we still selling Meteor Lake laptops, which obviously don't have the same level of like AI performance or graphics performance as Lunar Lake, but obviously there's the new AMD AI Ryzen 300 uh, laptop processors, which benchmark pretty well. And you could also take a chance on a, I mean, it's not taking a huge chance. You could also use a Qualcomm chip, uh, which are giving really good battery life. So those are the choices right now. I mean, I think we will probably pretty soon be able to get some benchmarks of Lunar Lake and see how it really stacks up in terms of performance. But obviously, there's not much that can be done about the amount of RAM.
Right. And obviously that content as you get it will be on the website.
Correct. We'll be able to tell.
Well, fantastic. Obviously, I look forward to seeing the reality of what these machines uh, look like. Intel benchmarks, Intel stats don't necessarily mean all that much, which is why we always appreciate,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Yeah.
your team and everything that you do to bring us consistent numbers that are tested the same regardless of brand or platform or whatnot, so that we have a direct comparison of things. So definitely looking forward to that. And of course, as always, Avram, we appreciate it and we look forward to what we talk about next time. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Piltch Point with Avram Piltch. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and of course, hit the notification bell since subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. And if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you don't want to follow us on YouTube, that's okay. There's a lot of other ways that you can follow our content. You can find all of that by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.